Hi everybody, I tried 5 diets over the span of 17 years, so I want to let you know how each one affected my gut health. A little background, I had IBS, so chronic constipation, bloating, gas, abdominal pain, and food sensitivities for about 15 years from ages 5 to 20. And along my journey, many of the diets I tried actually made things a lot worse. However, around age 19-20, I finally figured out how I needed to eat to completely heal my gut, and now I've been symptom-free and completely healed for the past about 6 or 7 years now. So yeah, I want to share with you both what worked, what didn't work, so that you can skip all of that trial and error and just go straight for the best gut healing diet. So let's go over these 5 diets. The very first one is a vegetarian diet. So from ages 9 to 19, I was vegetarian, and a year and 10-month period of that time I was actually vegan, but that's going to be the next diet. So I'll go over that in a little bit. Now, I strongly believe being vegetarian was a huge factor that led me to develop my gut issues in the first place. So I was having constipation and tummy discomfort from around age 5, but it wasn't crazy. Like, it got a lot worse down the road. So some other factors that I think led me personally to develop gut issues were, one was antibiotic use as a kid. Antibiotics are horrible for your gut, and I got a lot of ear infections as a kid and had a lot of antibiotics for those. Also, this is a little bit later on in life, but I would get a little bit stressed, mostly due to perfectionism and wanting to control things. And then also, a little bit later down the road, I was exposed to Roundup, which is an herbicide that's known to cause leaky gut and be really, really harmful to your gut, because a place that my mom was renting, they sprayed it in the backyard. So I think those contributed, but I still think that a vegetarian diet was the primary thing that got my gut really bad. Now, the reason for this is, one, a vegetarian diet has tons of really hard to digest plant foods. If you've heard me talk about anti-nutrients before, that's what I mean here. So a vegetarian diet involves a lot of beans and grains and nuts and seeds and veggies and fruit. Like, that's a lot of what you're eating. Now, you do still eat eggs and dairy too. But plants, I've talked about this a lot, they don't want to be eaten, and they can't run away or fight back like animals do. So they put these compounds inside of them called anti-nutrients. So these are things like lectins, oxalates, phytic acid, and they cause a lot of digestive distress. And the point of this is to discourage you from eating them. Now, different plants have different amounts. So veggies really isn't that much, and fruit has next to none because the plant actually wants you to eat the fruit. But when we talk about the seed, that's the plant's baby. So grains, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, all of that falls in that category. They're very high in anti-nutrients because the plant does not want you to eat its seeds. It wants to spread those seeds, continue its spread on, and grow its population. So seeds are really, really hard on your digestive tract. Those anti-nutrients prevent you from absorbing nutrients out of the plants, and they just cause a lot of digestive distress. They can scrape at your gut lining, and yeah, they're not great. So another thing here is, because of this, they prevent you from fully breaking down the plant foods, and then there's a lot of excess waste. So in order to actually absorb and utilize nutrients in your body, you need to break your food down into its smallest units. So protein has to be broken down into individual amino acids. Fat has to be broken down into fatty acids. Carbs have to be broken down into glucose, galactose, or fructose. Those are the smallest units. And nutrients, so vitamins and minerals, have to be isolated and on their own. So when foods are harder to digest, these things are still clumped together and they're not in their smallest units, and those cannot go through the channels that are in your gut wall that allow nutrients to get into your bloodstream. So therefore, there's a lot of excess waste. And when you have a lot of excess waste, that means there's more stuff that has to be eliminated in your stools. So if you're already prone to constipation, it's going to increase your stools, give you a lot more stools, and that'll just make it really hard to get everything out. It'll just back you up a lot further. Also, with constipation like I had, And that slow motility and all these stools hanging out there, if they're hanging out longer, they're going to ferment more and produce more gas, and that's going to add to that full feeling and discomfort. So eating a lot of hard to digest plant foods really doesn't set you off on the right foot, and it's really hard to be vegetarian and not eat a lot of those. Now, another thing is a vegetarian diet cannot give you all of the nutrients you need to be healthy. So it cannot supply enough nutrients for you, and you need nutrients to digest food properly. You need nutrients to make stomach acid, to make digestive enzymes, to just have everything function optimally in your digestive system. So with those nutrient deficiencies, your digestive system now becomes less effective at breaking food down, harder to get nutrients in, you're getting more waste, you're getting more discomfort. You can kind of see where that's going. So then on top of this, nutrient deficiencies, so not being able to actually get enough nutrients out of the foods you're eating, having a hard time breaking them down so you're getting even less nutrients out of them, will lead you to feel very unsatiated. So when you eat, like I did when I was younger, I would not feel satiated from my food because I didn't get all my nutrients in. So it was very easy to accidentally overeat. And the thing is, it's just not feeling satiated. You want more food. Your body's hoping you'll get the nutrients you need. But if you eat a bunch of peanut butter or something instead, and that doesn't actually fulfill the nutrient requirement, it's hard to feel satiated. So when you overload your digestive system by binging and eating way too much food, it really wreaks havoc. So it makes it a lot harder for you to digest things properly. It slows everything down. It doesn't work well. So for me, I had this accidental binge starve habit because I would do that, and then I would feel so crappy after eating too much. Like it'd feel like there was rocks in my stomach. Everything was bloated and painful and it hurt. And the last thing I wanted to do was eat. And with that, I just didn't want to eat for a while after that till I felt better. So I'd eat very little. And then my body would be like, oh my God, we need nutrients so bad. And I wouldn't get enough. So then I would binge again. So that also is a very common tendency with a vegetarian diet. I know that that's not always going to happen, but the lack of nutrients is going to make you a lot more prone to doing that, which is going to worsen your digestive issues. And that's what happened for me. Okay, diet number 2 is a vegan diet. So like I said before, for a year and 10 months, I was vegan. This was in the middle of me being vegetarian. So I was vegan from ages 15 to 17. And this was the absolute worst of my gut issues. I felt horrible. So I was really confused because I thought I was so healthy because I got like 9 or 10 hours of sleep a night. I exercised regularly. I was eating all these veggies. I was cooking from scratch. I was very conscious of toxins and avoiding them. Like I thought I was so healthy. So I was so confused why I felt so bad, which was really discouraging. So I had horrible cramping and really sharp pains in my abdomen. I felt very backed up with stools and gas. I was only having about 2 or 3 bowel movements a week. I never felt hungry. Nothing I ate sat well. Felt like I didn't tolerate anything. It always sat like a rock in my stomach. I just felt like my digestive system was broken. I was constantly dwelling on this. What should I eat? How do I fix it? And it was really bad. It did not feel good. I lost a lot of weight. A vegan diet was horrible. So on vegetarian, I had a lot of these symptoms. I had bad constipation. I had stinky gas. Like I felt uncomfortable. But when I went vegan, it made it so much worse. And I think that's because I had even less nutrients from not having dairy and eggs. And I had even more plant foods that were hard to digest. So at 17, I hadn't had my period for 2.5 years. So this was another sign that a vegan diet just is not something that can nourish you. You cannot get all your nutrients in on it. So I ended up deciding to go back to a vegetarian diet at age 17. So I did notice a little improvement from that, but it still was not great. Like I was still constipated. I was still bloated. I still didn't feel good. I was able to gain a little bit of weight back. I was able to get my period back, and I felt a little less bad. Mostly I was able to eat more. I wasn't so bad that I could never eat, but I still did not feel good on it. So that brings me to the third diet, which is I'm just calling it a whole foods diet here. So basically, I decided to introduce meat again. I have a lot of other videos talking about that, but long story short, I decided to start eating meat again, and I didn't really have restrictions so much here. I just wanted to eat healthy, whole foods. So I really avoided all processed foods, and I minimized sugar. I cooked a lot for myself, but I would eat meat, eggs, dairy, beans, grains, gluten, veggies, fruits. Like, I would eat anything that was a whole food. I just avoided things that were like prepackaged or processed. At this time also, I had gotten very into macro tracking because I am a weightlifter, so I wanted to make sure I was getting the nutrients I needed to support my training and make progress there. So I started macro tracking, and I was also very conscious to get my body weight in protein every day. So if you're not familiar with that, a very good metric for how much protein you need is how much you weigh. If you're a healthy weight, if you're underweight, you're going to want to eat more. If you're overweight, you're going to want to eat less. So it's, if you're a healthy weight, your pounds, how much you weigh in pounds, you want to get that many grams of protein. If you are not a healthy weight, you want to use your ideal weight for this instead. So I was around 140 pounds, so I got 140 grams of protein a day, give or take a little, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but I was really good about that. Really just introducing meat and getting more protein in my diet made me feel so much more satiated. So I stopped binging and starving. I was able to eat till I was full and stop, where before I would feel like, I know I should stop now, but I want more and I'm not going to, and I know I'm going to feel like horrible later, but I'm still going to go for it. Now I was getting more nutrients in, I was feeling more satiated, and I was able to go, no, now's enough, I'm done. So I think not binging and feeling more satiated helped a ton. I was starting to have more regular bowel movements, so about 5, maybe a little bit more bowel movements a week. So that was huge for me. It's not all the way, but it's a lot better. I felt less bloated. I think my tummy got like a little bit flatter during this period. I actually felt hungry for food. I was digesting foods well. I would still flare up and get like a lot of tummy pain and constipation if I was stressed or traveling. So I definitely was not healed all the way, but literally adding meat into my diet made a big difference. So I don't think that this was enough for me to heal. Well, it wasn't enough for me to heal. I don't think it was specific enough to gut healing, but I definitely saw an improvement. Fourth diet is keto. So the way I personally did keto was very similar to a few other diets. So it was very similar to a GAPS full diet, if you are familiar with that. So GAPS is gut and psychology or physiology syndrome. It is a diet that's coined by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. It's an excellent diet for gut healing. Now, I was not aware of GAPS full at the time. There are different types of GAPS. There's GAPS intro, GAPS full, GAPS no plants, like there's variations, but GAPS full is the least restrictive kind of baseline main one. So I was not aware of this diet at the time, but since then, becoming aware of what you eat and what you don't eat on it, my keto diet was extremely similar. There might have been a few foods that I varied on, but it was very similar to that. It was also extremely similar to an animal-based diet, so centering your meals around animal foods, so meat, bone broth, eggs, dairy, seafood, things like that. Eating some fruit and veggies, but not having grains, nuts, seeds, legumes. So I was almost on an animal-based diet. And I also was learning about a Weston A. Price style diet at the same time. So I implemented a lot of the same principles of properly preparing things like toasting or soaking nuts prior to eating them, introducing fermented foods, having bone broth, having liver. So keto is what I'm saying for this because that was the focus. I had my fat very high and my carbs very low, but really this time period was kind of a mishmash of keto, GAPS full, and animal-based diet and a Weston A. Price style diet, and this is what I healed on. So let's talk about what I actually ate here when I was healing. So I ate tons of meat, butter, dairy, and eggs. Those are extremely nutrient-dense foods, and they are not harmful to your gut in any way. they're just amazing foods to have. I also had liver and bone broth every single day. I had ferments and veggies very regularly. I had no gluten, grains, legumes, seed oils, or sugar. Aside from, I had peanut butter. I would have a little bit of peanut butter pretty much every day, and that is technically a legume. And I also had corn tortillas a few times. This was not regular at all. Corn is technically a grain. But yeah, and I would have some fruit and some nuts from time to time, but it was very minimal because I was on keto. I was focused on low carb fruit, so I'd have like some berries here and there. I remember having a little bit of apple and a little bit of like toasted walnuts in a salad, but they were very minimal. So yeah, that's where I was at diet wise. I did make a mistake. I included stevia. I thought it was healthy. I thought it was okay. It's not. Long story short, stevia definitely led me to gain some extra weight on keto. Do not fall for that. It's not natural. I mean this as most of the time when you buy stevia, it's not like stevia leaf ground up into powder or stevia leaf like extracted and pure. Most of the time they're extracting one component. I always forget the name of it. It starts with an R. It's really long and then it has an A. But anyway, there's one component they'll extract out of stevia, so it is not very natural at all. It doesn't work well in your body. It causes huge blood sugar spikes. It's not good. So I made that mistake, and I was still able to heal once I learned stevia wasn't good. I stopped consuming it. But yeah, so do not fall for that on keto. Don't go out and get all the keto replacement everything. That's ridiculous. That's not a good idea. Just don't do that. Don't fall into the artificial sweeteners and stuff. I think it's far better to have some good quality honey if you really want something sweet than to be strict keto and eat these artificial sweeteners that still do practically all the things that sugar does, except for they're far worse. But this isn't a video about artificial sweeteners. So I found this diet to be very nourishing and healing. It was very low in fiber. I definitely had carnivore meals mixed into this. It did not back me up because of that, so that really helped. It was very low in sugars and starches. I was keto, so I was avoiding fruits and root veggies and stuff that give you more carbs, so that really helped my microbiome to reset. This is a GAPS principle of avoiding sugars and starches. I also had tons of homemade ferments, mostly from veggies from my garden too, so that really helped restore my microbiome. I started having bowel movements every single day without even having to think about it. It would just come like clockwork every single morning. Absolutely amazing. I'm still grateful every day that happens, even though it's been happening for like 6 or 7 years. Still grateful every time. I had such a light stomach, no bloating, no gas, no pain. I tolerated everything. I was eating really well. I got what's called fat adapted, so basically used to burning fat for fuel and not really using carbs for fuel so much. And that made me really good at like tapping into stored body fat to get energy from. So basically I could go longer between meals without getting hungry. I had a lot more flexibility in my meal timing because of that, being able to go longer. I also combined intermittent fasting with keto at this time. So I would eat between about 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And so that's an 8-hour window. What's that? 16-hour fasting window. Fasting can be really beneficial for healing your gut. It gives your gut just a time to focus on healing instead of digesting. I also did 2 or 3, I can't remember, 24-hour fasts during that time. That was definitely an interesting experience. So since I was keto, I was eating very high fat, 65 to 70% of my calories from fat. I was tracking everything, so these numbers are very, very precise and accurate. 25% of my calories from protein and 5 to 10% from carbs. So that was keto, and really very Weston A. Price style influenced, very almost animal based, almost GAPS full. So excellent gut healing diet. These are all principles that I teach now because they worked so well for me and they work so well for my clients, but that is how I healed. So that brings me to diet number 5, which I'm just saying is an ancestral Weston A. Price style diet. Now, the difference here that I want to make is that once I healed, I was able to introduce some more foods. So this is where I'm at now. So once I had been strictly following that gut healing keto diet for about 2 years, I was interested in adding some foods back in. I wanted to see how my body would do with a little bit more carbs. I was starting to think that you don't actually have to be keto and that carbs weren't evil and it was fine to eat some. So I wanted to try more. So I included more fruits and squashes and root veggies. I was having sprouted corn tortillas. So that's sprouting is properly preparing the grain. And I always made sure they were organic. And I was having rice and I was soaking that overnight in water and apple cider vinegar to properly prepare it and then cooking that. So I started introducing those. It went really well. I tolerated them really well. And remember, I had 2 whole years on that gut healing diet first, and then these were added very slowly, and they're pretty gut friendly foods still. So yeah, I was really introducing the properly prepared grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, and just more carbs, and that component of a Weston A. Price diet. I tolerated it great, no symptom flare-ups. I felt amazing, and I got more flexibility in my diet. Slowly over the years, I've added more back in. So I think I was gluten-free at least 2 years, but I think it was 3 years, or maybe it was 2.5. But the first year of like adding gluten back in, I went very, very slow with it. And that worked really well. So now I center my diet around that, all the principles that healed my gut that I described when I was talking about the gut healing keto diet. But I have added more. Now I make my own sourdough bread and different sourdough goods. Like tonight, I'm making sourdough chocolate chip cookies. So that is a treat. That is not something that I have all the time, but I can tolerate that and enjoy things like that from time to time. I'll also make oatmeal or rice and soak it overnight to properly prepare it. I started having honey again. Every once in a while, I'll eat out. This is not often at all. And during that previous time, like I barely ate out too, mostly just visiting family, and I would still follow my diet pretty strictly. Anyway, now it's mostly to get a sandwich or to get sushi. So the sandwich, I'll be like, okay, it's fine that the bread is, it might not be sourdough or might not be perfect, and I can live with that because it's not that often. And when I have sushi, I will have a little bit of soy sauce. I know it's not good. I never have it though, so it's like once a year. So that is a little treat for me because I enjoy it. But anyway, I'm still very, very mindful of minimizing my high anti-nutrient foods, so grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and properly preparing them as much as possible. I just don't have as strict of rules now, and I've retained my progress. I've done really well, so I think that is really the optimal way to heal, is to go a little bit more strict, follow something similar to what I did on the keto, animal-based, gaps full, Weston A. Price style diet. Like, follow something like that. And, give your body some time to really heal. Once you've been healed for a while, at least 3 months, then you can start to introduce some foods and gain more flexibility. But you have to stick to the principles that helped you heal your gut like 90% of the time, because if you just go back to eating whatever, you're just going to develop gut issues all over again. So which diet is best? Really an ancestral Weston A. Price style diet that is tailored more specifically to you and your gut issues. So for most people, that's going to mean gluten-free. For some, keto might work better. For some, animal-based, GAPS full, GAPS intro even, that's a stricter form of a GAPS diet. And just other modifications. Remember, your diet doesn't have to have a specific name. It doesn't have to be the same as anybody else's. You might need to be dairy-free for a little while. You might not tolerate eggs right now. There's a lot of different variations that happen person to person. So I like to teach these principles I'm talking about now because they're fundamentals and they're really important. But then I encourage you to do a little experimenting on your own and find out what works for you, because everybody's a little bit different. So while diet is one of, if not the most important component of healing your gut, there are a few others. And to truly be successful, you need to address all the root causes of your gut issues and have a complete healing protocol. So if you would like a roadmap for the 5 most important things to include in your gut healing routine so that you can get symptom-free ASAP, check out my free training video. I will have it linked down in the description. This is different than my other YouTube videos because it's a bit longer and it gives you a complete outline to make your own successful gut healing routine. So be sure to check that out down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in healing your gut naturally using principles like ancestral nutrition and holistic health principles, consider subscribing because that's what I talk about all the time. Thank you for watching.